Call to order the October 14th, 2020 meeting of the West Ashley Revitalization Commission. I believe we have a quorum present. We do not have any minutes, I believe, that were exchanged. So there's no approval of meeting minutes to go over. The one and only item that we had set up for today is the Old Town District Transportation Improvements. And let me just start off by saying a wonderful, heartfelt thank you to the county staff, to Richard Turner and company, to Councilmember Brantley Moody. This is something that was brought to my attention. I've been working on with Mayor Tecklenburg early on in my tenure as being a member of City Council. I recall I had these monthly meetings called Coffee and Conversation with Peter. And my very first one I had in February of 2016 was residents from Ashley Hall Manor who were complaining to me about trying to cross over into Ashley Landing Mall. And so the early days of connectivity was the first things that I heard about trying to improve this area. And then of course, we went through different proposals. It seems like yesterday, but it was 2 years ago, with improving what has been dubbed as a suicide merge. We don't like to use that term, obviously. And we went through different variations of that. And the county was very persistent. And so what we have in coming forward today are the result of much community input from those plans, from work in cooperation with the City of Charleston, our Department of Traffic and Transportation, Keith Benjamin, and just a host of people who I am just eternally grateful for their patience and persistence with this project. I'm very excited about it. I'm going to turn it over to Eric. Eric's going to introduce our panelists today, Megan and Ken, I'm sorry, Andrew, and of course Richard, and then we'll take it from there. So thank you all for being on here. Appreciate the time, and we'll come back and circle back around with you in a few seconds. But Eric, you want to take the lead from here, please?
Will do. Okay. So just real quick, prior to introducing our presenters, I just want to remind everyone that this is a Zoom webinar, which means that there is a Q&A feature as opposed to a chat feature. So should you have any questions that you would like to ask the commission members, I have made the Q&A open for the public. You'll see this little button somewhere on your screen, so Q&A. And you can type in your questions or comments into that location. You can also request to speak if you feel like your question or comment would be too lengthy for the public comment section. Just type in there, I would like to speak, and I can keep track of you and unmute you when we come to that part of our agenda. With that said, we have Richard Turner with Charleston County Transportation, along with Megan Smith, as the project leads for this on the county side. And they have their consultants, Andrew Fisher and Jennifer Beal, with us as well. And they are going to kind of tell us what has changed from the last time y'all saw the Old Town Sam Rittenberg Old Town District. With that, Megan, you should be able to do a screen share.
All right.
Eric, before you start that, would you just double check and see? I know that Councilmember Waring is trying to log on. Would you just keep an eye out for him?
Mayor Tecklenburg. Yes, there's Councilman Waring. And Mayor Tecklenburg, I believe, has now joined us as well.
We ready?
Okay, we're ready. Let her roll.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Richard Turner, as
as Eric said, I'm Deputy Director of Public Works Department, and I've been the project manager for this project, or the SC7 and 171 intersection improvement, off and on for a number of years, as this project has kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster ride over the years. And I'm going to really talk through a little bit of the history of the project and how we got to where we are today. And then Megan's going to really talk about what our proposal is. So to date back to the this project originated in 2006 and 7. One of the first sales tax projects. It was funded as a traffic study to see what was feasible. And we moved along through that. We developed a number of alternatives, and the alternative that was moved forward was to tee Highway 7 into 171, then in front of the old Manny's Locals now restaurant. And as we move forward through that and into discussions about right-of-way takes and things of that nature, and began to really move that forward, we've got a lot of pushback from neighborhoods at that time, and so it was the motion was made, and the money was eventually moved away from this project at that time, so that we could actually fund the 7 and 61 intersection improvements that have been completed thus far. So that's how that one originated. And then come to 2016 was what Councilman Shade was talking about with when he was elected, as well as Mayor Tecklenburg was elected. We began to talk, or they asked us to revisit this project, and could we come up with solutions to, one, remove the alternate merge, calm traffic in the area, and reconnect the neighborhoods. So we began to look at this project again. We funded some design, and that's where Parrish and Partners and Andrew Fisher came into play, and Jennifer Veal helped us move along through developing a number of alternatives. We analyzed a total of 9 alternatives initially from 2007 to 2018. And in December of 18, we brought 4 of those alternatives to the public that were reasonable alternatives, and they met what the goals of the project were at the time. One of the alternatives that was proposed had a Sumar Street extension, a new road that extended from Sumar Street and Sam Rittenberg over to Orange Grove Road, and it had a roundabout on Orange Grove Road. We've got a lot of feedback on that, as you can see on the slide there, with 388 comments. 70% of folks did not support that roundabout. In the end, it did not work, and that alternative was eliminated. But what we did get from that was safety, traffic flow, bike ped options, and access to businesses were important features and things that folks did want to see. So we moved forward again and to another set of alternatives. In 2018, in May of 19, we came back to the public with 2 alternatives. And it really was understanding what we had seen or what we had heard from the public. And one of those things that we did hear from the public at that time was, can you just put a signal at the alternate merge? And the answer to that was no. We did look at that. We looked at that in 2011. We requested DOT to consider that option in 2011, and at the time the answer was no. But fast forward to 2019, we heard that a lot from the community. We said, well, it's been a number of years, let's reconsider this. And we did model it from a traffic engineering standpoint. We modeled that option to see, would it work? And the answer really was no. Technically you could install it, but what the impact it would create was it basically doubled the amount of time that you would sit at that intersection of 7 and 171. So it failed from a level of service standpoint for a traffic signal. So we did not bring that one to the public in May of 19 because it did not meet one of the key goals, which was in improving congestion for this area. And in fact, it did the opposite. So we did bring we brought 2 alternatives that had a fair amount of geometric changes to the area that it did not, we removed that alternate merge, and we came up with geometric changes that would actually slow down the traffic in the area. It would create a T intersection. But one of the main things that it did do is it really limited the access to Northbridge Drive. It really and limited some access to the businesses. And so we heard very loudly 600 through 697 comments, and 87% of those were no build. So we backed up once again and said, okay, let's get the group together. So we looked to our leaders and Councilman Moody and Councilman Shade and Mayor Tecklenburg and said, hey, let's look at this again. What can we do? What are the goals that we should be looking at as we move forward with this project, which really leads us to where we are today. Some of the focus we wanted to have was a number of intersections in the area where we felt like we should have some safety improvements. Bike and pedestrian access was paramount to this project. And one of the things that I've heard since in this project since Mayor Tecklenburg came in was, I want to reconnect these neighborhoods. So that was a focus of this as we move forward with these different alternatives. And congestion relief, have improvements at Orange Grove and Sam Rittenberg. That's a congested interchange. Or intersection, what can we do there? And while we do this, can we maintain the existing alternate merge, and can we calm the traffic in the area? So we've really focused on a lot of those items as we've brought forward this new alternative that we're proposing to move forward with. So what you see on the screen now is Old Town District Transportation Improvements, and that's a new name, kind of similar project, but we wanted to refocus this project to really, this is a larger project than just 7 and 171 intersection. This includes multiple intersections in the area. It really brings improvements to that area of West Ashley and that gateway of folks coming into the West Ashley area. So we will be, when we talk about this project moving forward, it'll always be the Old Town District Transportation Improvements. Megan, you'd like to?
Sure. So as we have a new project, we had to set newer goals, one of which was improving the level of service for the traveling public by creating safer intersections, installing some landscaping to help calm traffic and reduce speeds, adding decorative signals and brick crosswalks to kind of make those intersections more visible. We're looking at supporting access to the existing and future businesses and creating a livable community through connectivity. And those were 3 things that were really emphasized during the previous public meetings. The project is also looking at 3 specific intersections where we're going to improve mobility for vehicles, improve the flow of traffic, and improve the safety at those intersections. And that is Old Town Road at Charlestown Drive in Donahue, Sam Rittenberg Boulevard at Amberley, and Orange Grove at Sam Rittenberg. I'm going to go into those in a minute, but to give you an understanding of why we chose those intersections, as you can see here, this is a heat map of crash data that we had. Obviously, Orange Grove, you've got a major hub there where there's a lot of crashes. Same thing over here at Charlestown and Donahue, since those roads were not aligned, and also over here at Amberley. And by improving these intersections, we have modeled it and believe that it'll help improve a lot of these other areas throughout the property project limits. Charlestown Drive in Donahue at Old Town, we're proposing we realign Charlestown to be right across from Donahue and upgrade this to a decorative traffic signal and crosswalks, as I said before, kind of make that a more visible intersection. We'll also be installing landscaping in the green you can see here, a lot of nice decorative landscaping. We'll have an 8 to 10 foot multi-use path all along both sides of the corridor. And there will be no impacts to the properties on Charlestown Drive. Oops.
Hey, thanks for mentioning that, Megan.
Yes, so as you can see here, it's a much more visible intersection. It works a little better. You can make the left-hand, right-hand turns out of there without worries of somebody coming from one of the side streets, since it's offset now. As you can see, there's the decorative crosswalks, the multi-use path on both sides, the shopping mall in the background, and the landscaping over here, as well as the decorative mast arms. The next intersection is Amberley Road at Sam Rittenberg Boulevard. Here we are planning on installing a traffic signal. which should help with some of the crashes that we saw, some of the crash data that we saw in that specific area. We'll be connecting the sidewalks along this corridor, and we'll be doing some landscaping. And that's up there. As you can see here, you've got the existing Starbucks right here. This is the Wings, and I don't remember the name, the Wings store restaurant. You got the landing, Ashley New Shopping Mall in the background, the decorative crosswalks, as you can see, landscaping, the mast arms. Sumar Street and the alternate merge. Here we're planning on connecting the sidewalks along the corridor. We'll look at widening Sumar for turning lanes, landscaping, and on-street parking. We'll also have that brick stamped crosswalks all along the area as prevalent throughout the project limits. We'll be planning on trimming and modifying this landscaping at the alternate merge to help with that sight distance when you're going through the merged intersection. And we've been coordinating a lot with the city of North Charleston on their Sumar Street, Northbridge Gateway redevelopment site. So that'll help once we have all these sidewalks and everything in, it'll help connect to that site. And we are also planning on, across from Sumar Street, extending a multi-use path to Orange Grove and then down to Orange Branch Road where there's an existing crosswalk. And of course, there's also landscaping that we'll be doing on Orange Grove. Here's a view of Sumar and Old Town. As you can see, this is going to be the future redevelopment site that the city of Charleston is doing. We'll have the turning lanes, the widened area, the landscaping, and the on-street parking on Sumar. And this is a picture kind of what we're envisioning for the alternate merge with the revised landscaping. The Sumar Street development is in the background. And finally, Orange Grove Road at Sam Rittenberg Boulevard. Here we're planning on adding in another left-hand turn lane off of Orange Grove onto Sam Rittenberg, as you can see here. We'll be maintaining this left access to Northbridge to help maintain the access to these businesses here. We're also planning on extending the right turn lane along the CVS here and installing a curb and sidewalk. I know if you go out there now, you probably can't even tell there's a sidewalk there. So we'll be trying to help mitigate that driving off the road in this area by extending that turn lane. We'll also be doing landscaping throughout, of course, as I've said before, the decorative crosswalks, the mast arms, and the multi-use path on both sides of the road. And here you can see Sam Rittenberg, Orange Grove is here, Sam Rittenberg is here. We've got the nice multi-use path, the landscaping improvements, and the decorative crosswalks and mast arms. So as for our schedule, we're currently in the public outreach phase. Our website will launch tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and that will also launch our public input period, which will extend to November 15th. We'll be accepting comments online. And once those are received, we will move forward with right-of-way acquisition and then final plans, and are looking at starting construction around the end of 2021, and construction should take about a year to complete. So with that, here's kind of an overall visual of the project. Again, putting in the landscaping, putting in these sidewalks, putting in the decorative crosswalks is going to help with creating a visible intersection where people are crossing, and also helping to reduce speeds throughout this entire corridor and help with the congestion as well. So with that, I will say thank you and open up, I guess, for questions or comments.
So Megan, if you go back to that very last screen, that overview, I think that gives us a good.
Yes, sir. I actually have a file that hopefully this will connect to. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
So
this might be
it looks
easier
like,
because I can zoom in and out.
Yeah. So it looks like there's some improvements also at the other end of Charlestown Drive on towards Dickens Street. Is that some improvements on that corner as well?
Yes, sir. We'll be installing, upgrading those signals to mast arms and putting in the brick stamp crosswalk, excuse me. And of course,
then I know another question was and this came up with a bunch of folks who live in the Park Shore neighborhoods, the timing of the light coming out of Orange Grove Road onto San Wittenberg. And I know we've got Keith Benjamin on the line, so that was also part of this plan as well, I think, if I'm correct.
Yes, we're going to be doing, with the upgraded signals, we'll look at the timing as well.
That's been a huge bone of contention for a lot of folks coming out of Park Shore. So people ask questions. I've seen these. We've gone over these. I'm very excited about these plans that has encompassed a lot of what we've been asking for, about everything we've been asking for. And it creates this, as Richard was pointing out earlier, so safety concerns are being addressed, and connectivity concerns are being addressed. Those are important concepts that I've heard from a lot of my constituents, and part of also what we're going through with the West Ashland revitalization study that we've had in the past. So we're checking off a lot of boxes with this.
One thing
Questions,
to note,
comments?
Councilman, one thing to note, we show a lot of landscaping in the area, and one thought there is traffic calming. We've heard a lot of folks, can we reduce the speed limit? And
Yeah.
before we really took on this or this plan, that was one of the requests that we made to the DOT was can you do a speed study, and can you actually just reduce the speed limit down to 35? It's 45 in the area now, and unfortunately the vehicles that are traveling through there now, it leads you to the conclusion that 45 is the correct speed limit through there. So that's not supported based on the data that was collected during that speed study. However, so we took that information and said, okay, we were not making large geometric changes to the area, but can we calm traffic through other means, such as landscaping? If we have some vertical type landscaping that gives a little bit of a feel of I won't say a tightness feel, but closes it in somewhat, that will still has the same capacity, same amount of cars can travel through there, but hopefully at a slower or a more calm pace that's conducive to the environment that it's within.
Yep. And Richard, to that point, by putting the stoplights at Amberley, that's going to have a calming effect anyhow, won't it? I mean, an indirect calming impact.
Right. It certainly will. It'll stop traffic there, and it gives you a better opportunity for bike ped to get through that area, to have a safe crossing from directly in front of Ashley Landing over to the sidewalks that are there on Amberley that connect over to Orange Grove. Obviously, you'll have signals there, Dickens, Amberley, and then at the 767 and 171, and then again at Orange Grove. So you do have 4 signals through there from beginning to end of this project. So yes, you'll have some stop and go. So it should be somewhat calm through that area, that section.
Chairman, this is Ashley Jackrell.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
wanted to thank you, and I'm sure Councilman Moody and many others were a part of reviving this project, and appreciated that very much. I was personally quite frustrated at the outcome the last time, that we kind of went completely back to the drawing board in so many ways. So thank you for making this happen. It seems like,
I think frustrated is a calm word, Ashley. Yes.
we've got to be diplomatic here, right?
Right.
Well, it looks like tons of improvements from a bike and ped perspective. And we talked about the concern earlier of what happens with the vehicle traffic, and certainly making these intersections safer is of utmost importance. And it seems like we've definitely done that with this plan. Is there an idea of what this will do to vehicle traffic in terms of the total impact to time traveling entirely through the series of signals, either on 7 or 171?
Well, we've modeled all of the intersections that through here, and we see those through a 2040 time frame, and will be operating at an acceptable level of service. The Orange Grove intersection in particular will operate at a higher level than it does today, because we're increasing capacity at that intersection. So the left turns that come off of Orange Grove today will will be able to make a left turn in the same or less amount of time because you'll have dual turn lanes there, which will create an overall more efficient operation of that signal, which will help flush out more vehicles, specifically like in the AM peak where you've got a lot of school traffic that comes down Orange Grove and makes that left to go toward the interstate. So the overall efficiency through the corridor should be improved over what it is today.
Great news. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I saw Councilmember Waring with his hand up, and then I lost you. Councilmember Waring, are you?
Yeah, I'm still here. I did have a question. First on the little reddish area there where it's gets connecting from Sam Rittenberg out to Manchester on Orange Grove Road.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain that?
This is that sidewalk that I talked about earlier. We're going to be extending it over to Orange Grove and then all the way over to this crosswalk that's existing.
Okay. And then if you go, I guess, a little bit north, beyond the intersection, beyond S&S cafeteria, going towards the bridge, guess it's not part of the project, but there's a natural landscape buffer there that at least I've talked about. I know we have talked about here that even it was just kind of cleaned up. Right now, it's just, you know, overgrown with very nice mature trees in there, but just needs cleaning up and maybe some, you know, if you look at the east side of Sam Rittenberg headed to the bridge, looks great over there. When you look at the west side of Sam Rittenberg, if I have my directions right, as you're coming into West Ashley, it just can be a whole lot better. And this would be, I don't know, what, 2 blocks from what we're talking about right now. Not so much replanting, but clearing out and replanting. You don't want to move the mature trees, but just limbing up, pruning, I don't know, maybe putting in some bedding, flowering plants or something below, which would be a much more welcoming gateway coming into West Ashley. I mean, all this looks great. So, but at the end of the day, the gateway is closer to the bridge, and we've done a great job. I mean, collectively done a great job on the what I'm calling the east side of Sam Rittenberg, but on the west side of Sam Rittenberg coming in. Peter, help me out. What's the first street on the right coming in West Ashley there?
You know, I was thinking the same thing. It's
Campion Hall.
And it's at
Yeah, it's
What is it?
Campion. Trinity's the light, but Campion is
Campion,
that frontage road.
Okay.
No, it can't be the
So
frontage road, but before that, Brantley, there's another
I think it's
intersection
Trinity.
with a
I think it's
stoplight.
Trinity.
Well, anyway, we kind of know the general area. We wouldn't get lost if we were over there, but that's what I'm talking about. I'm just wondering whether we can improve that area coming in, and as well as what you're talking about here is wonderful. But you just go a little bit extra yard, and I don't really. We already somebody owns that buffer. I'm thinking it's the county. I'm thinking it's the county or the state, maybe even the city. Number one, can we determine who owns that, and what does it take to improve that?
Well,
From an
and I will,
aesthetic
no, and I'm glad you brought that up, Councilmember Waring, because Michael Stravanakis has complained to us about that intersection at Trinity, I think it's South Trinity, maybe, and Sam Rittenberg. There's been a number. He was involved in an accident with someone running through that light, because when you come off the bridge, cars are flying down there at non-peak hours. And then what you mentioned, what Councilmember Moody has just mentioned about the Champion Way, it really does need a lot of cleaning up. But I've talked to the residents, saying they don't want that buffer gone. They just would like to have it spruced up a little bit more. So, Richard and Megan, I know that's outside of the purview of this project, but there were some concerns about the that intersection at, I think it's South Trinity, and Sam Rittenberg. Is the first intersection coming right off Northbridge. I don't know if that would create a problem if we took a look at that as far as timing with lights, or if there's a way to mark that a little bit better. there's been a couple of accidents, and those cars are coming down at least at 50, if not higher speeds coming off the bridge. So, well, I've got y'all's attention. Just I'll bring it to your attention now. Mr. Benjamin, good to see you down there below. You want to chime in on any questions or comments? You've been integral with all of this as well. Appreciate your help and input with this.
Well, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman. I kind of want to go back to, I guess, my initial question about at least we can maybe get some answers back, maybe not today, but at a later date on that buffer between the frontage road on off of Sam Rittenberg and the west side of Sam Rittenberg. That it goes pretty much from there almost all the way down to Ms. Ruth's, cafe, which is
Yep.
a pretty good stretch.
No, I agree with you. It goes all the way down to Winchester. And
Winchester. That's the street I was talking about. Winchester, all the way down to where Ms. Ruth's parking lot begins.
Yeah.
Which can be, you don't have to worry about mature oak trees or pine trees. They're already there right now. Who can we, I guess, finally, who does it belong to? So maybe we can address, what kind of aesthetic improvements can go there.
I will double check with Jason Kronsberg perhaps and see if that falls within his purview. I think the state has some control over that land as well. We've been batting that back and forth a couple of times and seems like we're chasing our tail with that, but I agree with you. It would really have an improvement on both sides of that road, Champion and Hall Road, on both sides of it.
All right, Mr. Turner, you have any input on that?
I'll look it up for you.
The buffer is owned by the state. It's part of the Sam Rittenberg right of way.
So to get the landscaping along Sam Rittenberg, as you have done within this project, you had to get permission from the state to do that?
Right. We have to have permission from the state for the entire project, and they've been a partner with us as we've worked through these different proposals throughout the last couple of years.
Oh, great.
We have not looked beyond Winchester. We stopped there at Winchester with a sidewalk, a multi-use path. We're trying to connect that neighborhood that is yet to be connected to this area. So we've advanced the sidewalk to that point. Connect that side of the road, but that's as far as we've gone. We've never collected any data down there at I guess that's Poston Road or Trinity on one side, Poston on the other.
I think it's called Durham Place, Richard. I'm looking at my map now.
Okay.
Durham Place, yeah.
Yeah,
we haven't specifically looked at that as part of this project because it's a little bit far out of our limits that would have been our limits for the length of the project.
I'm thinking just to get that cleaned up and a little bit more aesthetics. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of this project. I'm hopeful we can, find some other allies to include in the city, or maybe working with the county. If the state lets us, all we're talking about is going in there and doing some maintenance. We don't want to take out. I'm not talking about taking out the trees, because if I lived on that frontage street, I want to keep that buffer there. But making it a little bit more, making it beautiful. Who would argue with that? We'll find one person, Peter.
I'm not going to argue with beautification, trust me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else have comments, questions? Mr. Benjamin, anything you want to add, comment on? I see it. Yes, Mr. Bell.
I don't want to say too much. This is just indicative of the collaboration that's essential for getting good transportation done. And, I say this in other audiences, but the county staff, city staff, and SCDOT staff meet regularly, not just on this project, but just in general, to talk to issues and otherwise. So the efforts around this have been extremely collaborative. There was 2 questions that were in here. Megan, I don't know if you want to address the access issue along the corridor, or Andrew, if you want to zoom in to address that specifically around the Amberley intersection. I will say about the multi-use pathway, obviously we want to continue that work. I know the area that was asked about keeping it going to Ashley Hall Road, I think is a great idea. I know it's slightly outside of this, but to give an example of where coordination occurs, this is project scope for the Old Town District. However, we made a request. We made a request for with the Charleston Parks and Rec for continuing of multi-use access to their park and the work that they're going to be doing at the park. And we supported them in that request and ask. So there is opportunity for us as a municipality to make requests during the next round of sales tax for additional sidewalking and multi-use pathways. Not sure where that falls on the ranking list when they do their review for that, but it is something that we can make the request for, especially since it will create greater connectivity.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Mr. Mira, I saw your hand up. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just I have a comment and a question. First, I want to just thank Megan and Richard and Councilmember Moody and our county partners for helping bring this forward. This is really terrific. And y'all might have covered this. I was a little late coming on. Did you talk about the time frame for being able to move forward and make this happen?
Yes, sir. Right now we're in our public input period. That'll go on for 30 days after we launch the website. We're looking at then going into plans, right-of-way plans, and then final design, and hoping to start construction pending funding by the end of next year and being completed by the end of 2022.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask about the funding now. Where's the funding identified for this?
It is not yet, Mr. Waring.
Got work to do. Okay.
We do, but it's on the radar.
Gotcha. Do we have an anticipated cost? We know how much this is going to cost?
We don't have a definitive number yet, because since we're still in a concept phase. So we'll be developing those numbers soon as we go through the next phase of 30%. And then on the right-of-way plans, those numbers will become more clear as we have more details on each of the changes there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other commissioners have a question, comment, observation? If not, I will turn it over.
Councilmember Shade, let me make a couple of comments. Keith, the cost we don't know. I mean, it's going to be considerably less than the numbers that were thrown around during the first iterations because of, as Richard said, the right of way. I mean, the right of way acquisitions will just be strips, if any, and so that's usually the budget buster in these type of things. So half. I don't know. I'd be guessing to say, but it will be considerably less than the numbers that were thrown around this first time. But I do want to join in and compliment Richard and Megan. They came to a lot of community meetings. You hear a lot of social media. They're going to do whatever they want to do. Our opinion doesn't count. Well, that's just not the case. The opinions were heard in both situations. The first time when the Northbridge Sandhurst side was impacted. I'm sorry, when the Sandhurst Huntington Woods Ashley Hall Manor side was impacted. The second time Northbridge and Park Shore. We listened, and these plans right here touch the corners. It's not so invasive, and that's what people were really concerned about. The Northbridge Center is still very accessible. You're going to get some beautification, a lot of plants and sidewalks. So I think this meets what most citizens said during the first two rounds.
Amen. And Brantley, I think, or Richard, I think the cost estimate for the initial plans was around 10 million, if my memory serves me correct.
That's correct. We were 10+ million on the first go around.
Yeah. So this is what Councilmember Moody has mentioned. This is going to be something, I think, hopefully far south of that number. So, but it's going to accomplish what we want. I mean, it's going to accomplish a lot of what we want to take hold of. Yeah, okay, I'm not seeing any other hands or comments from commissioners. So Eric, you want to see if we got any comments from the public? Mayor, did you want to?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
I was just going to say, I see a couple of questions in the comment section.
Yes, sir. We have two questions from Mr. Jack Daniels. And we also have Chris Blumel from Brooks Coffee, sorry, who has raised his hand for an audio comment or question. How would you like to
Well,
proceed
if
with
there's
that?
somebody live, go ahead and recognize them and let's hear from them. And so how many people do we have all together who want to comment? Just do,
We have two questions that have been asked, which are very site-specific to intersections in
Okay.
the area. Mr. Blumel, who would like
Sure.
to speak. And if anyone else would like to speak, go ahead and do the raise hand feature or just submit your name through the Q&A again. And I can go ahead and unmute you in turn. And then we have 3 comments that were submitted online and 1 phone call in.
all right.
So I am going to go ahead and unmute Mr. Blumel right now.
Hello, Chris.
You okay?
We can hear you.
All right, Councilman Shade and everybody else, thank you so much. As I pointed out in a different meeting the other day, I think all of this really looks great and it seems like a perfect step. I did have a couple of questions that it was kind of difficult. It seemed almost like it was too late to ask these types of questions, but I'm hoping it's not. I own the coffee shop directly across from the Piggly Wiggly site where we're trying to do all these improvements. And my first concern is that I don't see any kind of accessibility improvements on the Northbridge side of the highway anywhere between Charlestown Drive and Orange Grove Road. So while Ashley Plaza and GDC and whatnot are going to have wonderful access, the whole Northbridge side is still going to be separated by a highway with no option to cross anywhere near the new site where we're talking about putting 80,000 square feet of office space. And my second question is, or my concern is that the suicide merge, which I think is not properly named, the alternate merge isn't being addressed in any of this. And I'm concerned about that mainly because I think it's okay if cars want to broadside each other at 50 miles an hour fighting for dominance, that's one thing. But what happens is people are coming from Sam Rittenberg heading north toward the Cosgrove, and they're immediately taking a 90 or 180 degree turn to jump onto Northbridge Drive or loop back around into the Northbridge Plaza. And this plan doesn't take any of that into account, and they're going to continue doing that. So those are my 2 main questions.
So Megan or Richard, y'all want to tackle that multi-faceted question from Chris? Y'all familiar with his coffee shop? It is really directly across the street from, almost from lines up with Sumar Street, but not quite, but it's right in between Southgate and Sumar Street.
I will. So the first question really was talking about access, and Chris, I assume what you're meaning is really having a traffic signal there to allow a pedestrian to walk across Highway 171. Is that correct? I assume that is.
I was muted for a second. Yes, it's what we were talking about the other day, combination crosswalk option and slowing down or stopping that traffic heading toward the Cosgrove.
Right, you're correct that there are no additional signals along 171. You know, we in a couple of different the alternatives that we did model, we looked at a signal at Sumar Street, and there's a few things that complicated. One is its proximity to existing signal at the merge or the intersection of 7 and 171. It's just the spacing is just too tight that you would have a lot of conflicting movements there. Basically, the traffic's going to back up to that signal into the other intersection, causing just exacerbating an already congested area. And Sumar Street, as it is, I can't justify a signal there. There's really no traffic there to warrant a signal. So we faced a couple of different number of obstacles when we've looked at those options. So it has not been included in any of the any alternative that maintains the current configuration of the merge and the signalized intersection of 7 and 171. We did look at it in some of the larger geometric changes, which would have provided that access, but those did not make it to this point. Your second point was the concern about folks making I guess a right. You know, as we talked about on the meeting, on the call the other day, was, you know, I think our best opportunity here really is to try to help maybe some wayfinding to get folks that would use the Charlestown Drive or Sumar Street access points to get over to 171 and then come to, say, North Bridge Drive or Orange Grove to alleviate that concern for that weave from Sam Rittenberg to make a right on those two. I think that's our best options. Obviously, the other alternatives that we did propose, they did address that directly through geometric changes to the intersections. Without making those large improvements, I can't really address that in particular unless we get rid of the merge altogether.
Hey, Richard, as a follow-up, on the Ashley Landing side of Old Town Road, aren't we extending that sidewalk all the way down to Sumar Street?
So from Charlestown Drive through basically, I'll say frontage road to frontage road, Ingram Road, or even it goes all the way down to Charlestown Landing at this point. We're looking at multi-use path from Ingram Road over to the frontage road there around the Kick and Chicken area. We've got frontage roads that are comfortable for folks to ride their bikes on today because it's low traffic. We have sidewalks in both of those locations. But in between, you've got a pretty large gap of bicycle accommodation. So this would fill the gap. So then we would have a very good connection all the way down to the waterfront park, all the way back up to what will be the Old Town Park and Charlestown Landing.
Mm-hmm. But on the Ashley Landing side, aren't we putting sidewalks on that?
Yes, there will be sidewalks on both sides of the road for the full limits of the project. There's a few spaces in there today. I think there's a gap there in front of the auto parts store, and maybe one or two gaps along that side today, and we'll be filling in those gaps, connecting it over to Sumar, having sidewalks on both sidewalks or shared use paths on both sides of Sumar Street.
So Chris, while it's not going to address exactly the points that you made, I think what I heard from Richard was, you know, in our attempts to address those concerns that you had, that's why we had to retreat, because it got shot down. But we are adding as much access as we can to both sides of Old Town Road, and the improvements on Donahue/Charlestown Drive is going to help a lot with that connectivity. It's not a direct connection, but it does give you better access to Ashley Landing, and then more direct access to the new Sumar Street site that the city's planning.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Thank you for your comment, Chris. Always good to hear from you. Eric, was there somebody else with a live question?
We have two questions that were submitted by Mr. Daniels.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and read these out loud, and y'all can answer them. So the first one was, how will the close proximity of Manor Boulevard to the new Amberley signal and existing Dickens signal be addressed, i.e. cars blocking Manor Amberley and Manor Dickens intersections?
Currently, Dickens and Sam Rittenberg, it is the DOT about probably, I'll say 2 years ago, remarked that intersection with a kind of an X crossing and some signage to bolster that, to hopefully get rid of that issue that where you have folks that sit in that area. You know, we could do something similar on the Ingram Road, Donahue side that was done on the Dickens side. Megan's got the KMZ or Google Earth file up there now. So really geometrically or some physical change would almost, you know, have to basically block off those frontage roads to get rid of that, that conflict of that, with that. So, you know, at this point, it's like I said, the traffic markings that were done on Dickens would be something similar that we could do on the Donahue side.
All right, and
Okay.
the other one was, what happens to the shared multi-use path once it reaches Dickens Street? Will it continue down Sam Rittenberg to Ashley Hall Road, which it sounds like that one we discussed just a little bit ago, that there's potential for Mr. Benjamin, correct me if I'm wrong, sounds like there's potential for some type of TST partnership in a different project.
Well, to be clear, I don't want to be misinterpreted. The city can make a request, and when every year there's a solicitation process for all municipalities to submit for the transportation sales tax program. And one of them includes bike and pedestrian access. And so similar to how the city of Charleston supported Charleston County Parks and Rec in their submission for continued multi-use path access to their park along Old Town, we can either submit or support a submission for review for funding for that connection. That's not a guarantee for funding. There's a non-political assessment process that goes through for such projects, but it is something that we can submit.
Okay.
All right, thank you for clearing that up. So it sounds like at current for that question, Mr. Daniels, is that this project will end at Dickens, or there are some opportunities in the future to continue that path further down. With those, we do have 3 submitted comments online that I'm going to go ahead and read out. And then we have one person that I'll be reading a phone call that they gave to me. The first comment from online is from Rick Dildren, and he says, the traffic light at Orange Grove and Sam Rittenberg is not programmed to support good exit from the North Bridge and Park Shore neighborhoods before 7 a.m. and traffic piles up. Traffic can only turn left or go straight on every other cycle. Meanwhile, the opposite direction flow is allowed to go on every light cycle. Additionally, when the go straight signal does appear, there is only enough time for 2 cars to cross Sam Rittenberg. Frequently, a 3rd car attempts to go, but runs a red light to do so. Recommend allowing exit on every light cycle before 7 and adding 10 seconds to its duration.
And to that question, I think that we address that the resynchronization of lights will take place with that. Am I correct on that? Megan's nodding. So
yes,
yeah. Okay.
We'll look at the resignal, looking at the signal timing, and also adding that left turn movement might alleviate that issue.
Next comment is from Eric Hansel. I support the practical improvement efforts in the Old Town District. If not already included, I encourage County Council to take this opportunity to enhance beautification elements, such as landscaping and lighting, on par with improvements made to Johnny Dobbs Boulevard in Mount Pleasant and the Crosstown in downtown Charleston under the penny tax program.
Yeah, landscaping and lighting is being addressed in this project.
Right. And then the final online submitted one was from Kate Ludwig. She says, as a resident of Charlestown Estates with children at Trinity Montessori, I'm forced to utilize all the above mentioned intersections. On a weekly basis, I see people running the red light significantly after the light has turned red. I'm scared to utilize these intersections every time, as there have been several instances where we have almost T-boned with my 2 children in the car. The light leaves the neighborhood, Donahue and Old Town Road, is so short that it is difficult for more than 1 car to safely cross, especially when you have to stop and wait to make sure no one is going to be running the red light. I would like to see the speed limit decreased on the road with better times lights, as well as increased police presence to enforce the laws.
Eric, I think with that question, we're addressing it in multiple ways. As Richard stated, with the landscaping, we're going to be, and what we're doing with that, we're gonna be able to hopefully reduce the speeds through the intersection with the realignment of Charlestown and Donahue, and with the resignalization, we should be able to help with some of those turning movements that she has issues. Also, installing those mast arms, the decorative traffic signals, and the decorative crosswalks, and trimming back and putting in landscaping is going to create more of an intersection feel. So you're going to know that you're in an intersection. You're going to accidentally drive through it. Hopefully that answers the question.
And Megan, I like what you just said. It is going to create more of the appearance of an intersection, because I think it is somewhat confusing, because that access road to the back of Ashley Landing is right there. There's a like a driveway back in that area, the access. So the diagrams and the illustrations you showed us earlier really do enhance this intersection to make it look more like an intersection. And you can see that there's an attempt to square off that intersection as well, which is sort of part of the other problem, that cars are crossing from Donahue to Charlestown Drive or vice versa, not lined properly. And so this is going to improve that, I believe, significantly. Okay, Eric.
All right, and the last one was from Meyer Lippman. He gave a phone call to me earlier today, and he had reservations about the intersection realignment of Charlestown and Donahue at that location. His concern is that people will, that realigning this will actually cause more accidents to happen at that location, because people coming off of Charlestown or Donahue will attempt to go through the intersection at faster speeds, and that it would cause increased traffic accidents in that manner. That was the general gist of this phone call.
I think, again, kind of what I said with the last question, adding those decorative crosswalks and the signals, adding in the landscaping, you're going to look at reduced speeds, and actually realigning that is going to help with some of those safety, some of those crashes that are happening in that intersection, because you do have that misalignment and that access road behind Ashley Landing there. So I think ultimately this realignment is actually going to be, well, not I think, I know ultimately this alignment will be a benefit and better for safety.
All right.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Benjamin, a couple of those comments were about timing, and I appreciate the fact that some of these changes will address those issues. But could you go ahead with DOT and just take a look at the timing issue? I mean, if it's something that needs to be adjusted or reset, I think that's something we have the ability to go ahead and do. I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We will take a look. I would say one of the concerns that we've gotten from DOT when we've talked with them through that process is the level of vehicular traffic on Sam Ritt. You take away timing off of that, then you're causing backups there as well. And so it's this delicate balance of trying to make everybody happy as they make their way through. So that being said, I definitely will. I'll talk to our signals management again when we meet on tomorrow for our check-in on work orders to talk through that again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Benjamin, because we have a lot of people vocal about that intersection. All right. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
No more have populated in since we've gone through these. So that would end the public comment section.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you all for all of you who had a hand in this. I think you've gotten a good flavor of the public comment from what we've seen so far, and we appreciate what y'all have done. We'll keep on soldiering forward with public input. So this goes up on the website tomorrow, Megan, and
Yes, sir.
then there'll be, people can comment digitally on this. And how long will that comment period be open?
So the website goes live tomorrow, and we'll have all of these, not alternatives, but all of the intersections kind of shown where you can download a file, zoom in, look at it a little better. That'll go on for 30 days, ending on November 15th.
Okay. All right. All right. Commissioners, you received a survey request from Eric. A good number of you have responded to that. I appreciate and I love the comments that I've seen so far. So if you haven't, please do so. I'd like to hear from you as to your responses to that. Some of the responses have been very consistent, and we will try to address that, but we were just waiting for everybody else to have an opportunity to respond to that survey. So if you haven't done it, please get on to that. We're going to finish within an hour's time, which is a record for us. And Eric, our next meeting, have we set that yet?
Yes, we have. So technically our next meeting, if we follow the ordinance, would be November 11th, which is a federal and city holiday. So we opted back in January, I believe, to instead host our meeting on November 4th. So we're chopping off 1 week there. And I'll have to send out a special invite to y'all as opposed to the regular meeting, because I have it set up to reoccur second Wednesday of every month. I don't want to mess around with.
I know we started
Zoom stuff.
I know we started this meeting with a lot of conversation with voting. So please, if you haven't voted, take advantage of that as soon as possible. I know the county's setting up remote locations. I think one of them is opening up next week at the West Coast Church on Highway 7. East Coast on Highway 17. So please take advantage of early voting. This is a great opportunity, particularly in this pandemic that we're in. Please do that. Drag your neighbors, your family members, your friends, vote early. That's important. This is a lot of seats open locally or up, so your voice needs to be heard. November 4th looks like is our next meeting. County, Richard and Megan and Andrew and all y'all, thank y'all so much. Keith, thank you for your help in all of this as well. Yes, sir, Mr. Waring.
That's one last thing. I wanted to give thanks to the committee and Eric for, I brought up that issue about the Burger King at King and not King, Burger King at Sam Rittenberg and Ashley River Road about the grass, being high. That's been taken care of. So I wanted to, I think Eric had a hand in that. I appreciate that. And still ask all on the committee in listening distance, when you see untidy areas of West Ashley like that, I know you tend to call your councilman, continue to do that, but bring it to this committee as well, because the relevance of this committee is important. So
they can contact me directly. My information's on the website for West Ashley. So.
All right. So
always happy to either do a phone call or email.
All right. Good work, Eric. Thanks.
Good work, everybody. All right. Have a good, safe weekend. Y'all take care and see you on the 4th. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.